Okay, good morning Year 4 and welcome to Tuesday's maths lesson. We're going to be continuing our learning on equivalent fractions today. You'll need 2 sheets in front of you which are on the home learning document. Again, don't worry if you can't print them, you can just be talking them through on your screen. But you need your fraction wall again that we were working on yesterday, and you should also have a sheet with some blank number lines like this as well. So have those documents open or printed, ready to go before you start. The first thing I would like you to do is your do now. So we're going to be identifying and finding quarters. So I want you to look at the triangles on your screen that have each been split into quarters, or are they quarters? That's what I want you to find out. So I've given you a little bit of a clue here. Our star word of equal parts, which we've been using in all of our lessons. So look at each triangle. I want you to identify which triangle has been split into quarters. So thinking about your key word here. When you've done that and you've thought about that, then I want you to think about how many ways can you split a rectangle into quarters. So you may want to draw this out on some paper at home. How many ways can you split a rectangle into quarters? So pause the video and have a go at that and then come back when you're ready. Off you go. Okay, so hopefully you've had a go at both of those. So let's look at the first one. So 2 key things that we need to remember about quarters is, first of all, that it is split into how many parts? 4 parts, hopefully you're saying that. And also it needs to be equal. So 4 equal parts for it to be in quarters. So let's look carefully at the triangle. So I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I look really carefully, I can see that this triangle here has definitely been split into quarters. So well done if you managed to work that one out. Now, let's look at the next one. How many ways can you split a rectangle into quarters? So you can share your ideas on Seesaw later. But I have some ideas as well how you could do that. So there are about 5 different ways I've managed to work out there. So we can split it with lines. Just going straight down, we can go across horizontally, or you could split it down the middle and then into 2 triangles again. We can split it into 4 that way, and then you can also do a horizontal line and then triangles going a different way, so similar to that. So well done if you managed to work some of those out. So it's really important that our parts are equal, and there's 4 of them. Okay, so today's lesson, we are going to be looking at recognising equivalent fractions again. So you'll be using your fraction wall to help you for the first part of the lesson, and then you're going to be looking at number lines today. So a little bit different to yesterday. So let's just quickly go through our star words for the day. So hopefully you recognise what lots of these mean by now, because they're the same ones that we've been working on. So firstly we have numerator, denominator, fraction wall, whole, equivalent, and equal parts. Fantastic. So I just want you to think, let's just recap the meaning of these words before we go on today. What is the numerator? What is the numerator? So the numerator is the top number on my fraction. It usually tells me how many parts I'm referring to, or how many I've got, or how many wholes I am dividing by. What is the denominator then if the numerator is my top number? Hopefully you know that is then the bottom number. So the denominator is telling me how many parts I have all together, how many are in the whole. And then we've got our fraction wall, which we're going to be using today, same as yesterday. The whole, which is obviously how many are in the whole altogether. Equivalent tells me that they are the same, and then equal parts, all the parts are the same as well, like we just looked at. So let's look at today's learning. So we're going to recap similar to what we did yesterday. First, we're going to look at equivalent fractions of unit fractions. So I've just popped the definition there to remind you. So a unit fraction has a numerator of 1. Now I know we recapped this in our assessment before the Christmas holiday, and lots of us had forgotten that. Some of us remember we did learn that in year 3. So just a reminder there, any unit fraction has a numerator of 1. So the top number is going to be 1. So what fractions, or which fractions, are equivalent to 1/3? So I've already popped thirds up on there for you, so you should be able to find the green bar on your fraction wall. I just want you to have a quick look. Which fractions are equivalent to 1/3? We looked at this yesterday, you might be able to remember, but just recapping in your head or looking at your fraction wall, which ones were the same as 1/3? Okay, hopefully you've had a moment to look at that, or you might have been able to remember. So if we look down our fraction wall, you can see here I've popped it on the screen to make it a little bit easier if you manage to cut them up and piece it together. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 parts in my blue section, which is the same as your fraction wall you've got at home. So each part is representing 1/6. Okay, I'm not going to go and label all of them because I'm just looking at 1/3. So I want to know what this 1/3 is the same as. So I can see the 1/3 is the same as 2/6 because my 2/6 can fit equally into 1/3. So 1/3 is the same as 2/6. So hopefully you remembered that or you found that on your fraction wall. And then if I look at the bottom, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So there are 12 parts. So each part is going to have 12 as the denominator because that is my whole. So I'm just going to label the first ones that I can see are in line with my 1/3. So I have 1/12, 1/12, 1/12, 1/12. So altogether there are 4 twelfths. So if I move those up to my fraction of 1/3, it should fit in equally because they are the same. So 4 twelfths is also the same as 1/3. Okay, so we're going to move on to non-unit fractions as well today. So a non-unit fraction has a numerator greater than 1. So 2/3 is a non-unit fraction because it has 2 on the numerator. So I want you to look now on your fraction wall at 2/3. So I'm going to pop this under the visualizer so you can see it a bit more clearly. Okay, so I've got 1/2 today. So how we did yesterday is I asked you to cover it up with something, whether that's printed off or you can do this on your screen as well if you put a piece of paper. So remember, we're not doing it wonky, it needs to be nice and straight and in line with the lines that are going down this way. So I'm going to line it up to 1/2, and I want you to look really carefully which other fractions are in line with 2/3. So it's not going to be 3/4 because my 3/4 is longer than 2/3. Okay, it's a little bit bigger, so that's not equal. Okay, same with my 1/5. So having a look down, which ones are the same? Just going to give you a moment to have a look at that. Okay, so hopefully, oh, mine's got a bit wonky there, so let me line it up again. If I look where 2/3 is, if I keep going down, I can see it's in line with my 6. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4 6 are the same as my 2/3 there. And then if I keep going down, 7ths is not the same, so it's not in line. 8ths is not. Okay, I keep going. Oh, I can see it's lining up with this one here. So that's my 9th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of those 6 9ths. And then if I keep going down, 10th isn't the same, 11th, oh, 12th is in line. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 twelfths. Okay, so let's have a look at that on our fraction wall here. So I have 1/3 I'm starting off with, and it's the same as 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, sorry, I've made a mistake there. That's meant to say 2/3. Silly me. So 2/3 we're looking at this time. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I have 1, 6, 2, 6, 3, 6, and 4, 6 are the same as 2/3. So I'm just going to remove this bit out of the way so that we can see that nice and clearly. That we're just looking at 2/3. So 2/3 is the same as 4, 6. And then if we remember, we had our 12ths on the bottom. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, so hopefully we can start to see a pattern. So I just want you to look at these ones here. And there was also another one that we haven't got on there that we had written on as well, which was in our 9 times table. So we had 6/9 as well. I'm just going to squeeze that one in the middle there, because then hopefully you will start to see something about those fractions. So I'm just going to give you a moment. If you can just pause the video and have a little think, what do you notice about these fractions that are equivalent to 2/3? Okay, hopefully you've had a little think about that. You might have spoken with someone around you, or maybe you've had a little think in your head. But you might have noticed I've got 2, 4, 6, 8. So I've got my 2 times table, and then I have 3, 6, 9, 12. So well done if you spotted that. And then something that is what we spoke about yesterday as well, I have 2 on the top and 3 on the bottom. So 2 is 2/3 of 3. 4 is 2/3 of 6. 6 is 2/3 of 9, and 8 is 2/3 of 12. So then I could start to see my pattern. I could then work out what other fractions would be in this fact family. So 3, 6, 9, 12. I wonder what my next fraction would be. So hopefully you've spotted that next one in my times tables. My next multiple of 3 would be 15. So then 2, 4, 6, 8, 10 would be my next fraction, because 10 is 2/3 of 15. Because if I split 15 into 3 parts, it would be 5. 5, 10, 15. And 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, we will look at that in a bit more detail in our next couple of lessons, but hopefully you're starting to see that pattern now. So my next fraction, again, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18. Well done. And 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Good. I hope we're starting to see that pattern now. Well done if you've picked that up. So let's look at an example on our own here. So 3/4 is our next one. So I want you to think which fractions are equivalent to 3/4. So we're going to do this one together. So on your fraction wall again, I would like you to get that in front of you. We're looking for 3/4 this time. So I'm looking at my quarters. I need to count 1, 2, 3. I'm going to line something up to see that nice and clearly. So you can look at mine on the computer, or if you want to do it on your own at home, you can get yours up ready. So I've got that nice and straight now. So 3/4, I'm going to look down which ones are in line. So what I want you to do is pause the video and have a look, and I want you to either write it down, or you can think in your head which ones are in line with 3/4. Okay, off you go. Okay, hopefully you've managed to have a look at that now, either on yours or mine on the screen while you paused. So if I look down, I can see 3/4 is the same as none of these ones. Oh, it's definitely in line with the 8. So 3/4 is the same as 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. And it's also the same as some of my 12ths there as well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 9 12ths. So let's have a look at that on our board plan here. Okay, so I have 1/4, 2/4, oh, 1/4 there, 2/4, and 3/4. Oh, my writing is not very good today. And 4/4. Okay. Right, I'm going to remove that one. So we need to see what is equivalent now. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So each one there is representing 8. So I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 that are in line with 3/4. So I'm just going to remove that quarter because I don't need that at the moment, because I'm just looking at what's in line with 3. Same for my 8. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 eighths. So 1/4 is equal to 6 eighths. Okay, looking at the next one. So this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, just like on our fractional, but now we can see it's clearly in order. So I'm going to delete those ones and I can see what matches up with 3/4. So 1, 2, 3/4. Then I had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 twelfths. So hopefully again you can start to see the pattern. 1, 6, 9, 4, 8, 12. So again, oops, sorry, I've written the wrong fraction on there again. I am not awake today. So that one, sorry, should say 3 on the top. I definitely couldn't see the pattern there. I've made a silly mistake. So 3, 6, 9 on the top now. That is my multiples of 3. And then 4, 8, 12 on the bottom. So my next fraction, I want you to think in your head now, thinking about that fraction pattern, what is going to be the next fraction in that family? So if my fraction wall was to go past twelfths, what is going to be my next fraction? So I'm just going to, you can pause the video and have a think, or I'm just going to pause for a moment. What do you think is going to come next? Okay, hopefully you've had to think about that. So my next is going to go 3, 6, 9. So I know 12 is going to go next because that's my 3 times tables. 4, 8, 12, 16. So I could keep that pattern going for a long, long time. There's another way I can remember, as we looked at before. 3 is 3/4 of 4. 6 is 3/4 of 8. 9 is 3/4 of 12. And 12 is 3/4 of 16. Okay, so I could keep that pattern going. Again, we're going to look at that in a bit more detail. But as long as the top number is 3/4 of the bottom number, then that is always going to show me 3/4. So I know 75 is 3/4 of 100. So I know that is going to be an equivalent fraction to 3/4. A little bit of a tricky one there. Okay, I want you to have a go on your own now. So in a moment, you're going to pause the video. I'd like you to go away and you're going to use your fraction wall to find the fractions that are equivalent to 9 twelfths. So when you have your fraction wall in front of you, obviously my twelfths are down here. So you don't have any more fractions here, so you might have to look upwards to see which smaller fractions are equivalent. Okay, so have a look at that first, lining up to your twelfths. So you're going to be looking for 9 twelfths, which fractions are equivalent, and then if you can you find what other fractions are equivalent to them? So think about the pattern that we just looked at here. What is happening on the numerator and denominator? And then can you find any bigger equivalent fractions? So pause the video, have a go, come back, and then we're going to go through that together. Off you go. Okay, hopefully you have managed to have a go at that. So on your fraction wall, I'm just going to reel this here, you should have found these fractions that were equivalent. So this is my 9 twelfths. Let's just count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So I'm going to take away these ones because I'm just looking at 9 twelfths. I'm not looking at a whole at the moment. So I need to see what is in line underneath. So you should have found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I know this is 8s underneath. And in line with my 9 twelfths is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 8s. So I'm just going to remove, oh, that's not working, that one there. So I have 9 twelfths and 6 8s so far. And then on the bottom, I have 1, 2, 3, 4 parts. So I know that's in quarters. 1/4, 2/4, 3/4 is the same size as my 9 twelfths. Okay, so hopefully the pattern that you began to see there, if I look at my numerators, 4, 8, 12, or 12, 8, 4, if we're going backwards, 3, 6, 9. So hopefully you can start to notice, as we found it's 3/4, you could find any fraction which was equivalent to 3/4. So you may have gone from 9 twelfths if you found some bigger fractions and started to maybe double those fractions. So I could say 9 twelfths is the same as 24. I've times that by 2, and 9 would become 18 because I'm going to times that by 2 as well. So again, we're going to look at that in a bit more detail, but if you found any fractions that were the same as 3/4, the top number is 3/4 of the bottom number, my denominator, then well done. We're going to look at again that more in more detail, but fantastic if you're starting to see that pattern now. Okay, moving on to our number lines for today. So on the screen, you can see 3 number lines that are representing a strip from our fraction wall. So the first one is split into 2 parts. So I know that's going to be representing my halves. So on this side of my number line, I'm always going to start with 0. And on this side, I'm going to have 1 whole because fractions are part of a whole. And we're just looking at fractions smaller than 1 at the moment. Okay, so in the middle, I'm going to label that 1/2. 0, 1/2, 1 whole. Or I could say this is the same as 2 halves because I've got 2 halves there. Okay, so 1/2, 2 halves equals 1 whole. Okay, for the second one, I want you to think, how many parts is this split up into? What is going to be my denominator? Okay, hopefully you counted 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's split into 4 parts, which is quarters. So I know my denominator is going to be 4. But remember, I need to start with 0 at the beginning. So I'm going to label my 0 and 1 first. So my first one, you can say this along with me, is going to be 1/4. My second label is going to be 2/4. Well done if you're saying that along with me. And the next one is going to be 3/4. And then finally, 1 whole or 4/4 because they are the same. If I've got 4 whole parts and it's split into 4, then the whole thing is shaded. Or I have 4 parts. Okay, final one. So I want you to count now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I'm counting in 8s this time, but I need to start with something down here, which is a 0. Fantastic. And up here, I need to put my 1 whole. So it's in 8s this time, so I'm going to count 1/8. Next will be 2/8. Well done if you're counting along with me. Next one is 3/8. Then will be 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and finally 8/8 or 1 whole. Well done if you managed to keep up with me. I do apologise about my very dodgy handwriting, but we're going to go on to the sheet in a moment. So what we can begin to see now, which we're going to be looking at today, hopefully you can start to notice some patterns about the number line. So we've started the starting position, the 0, in the same place. You might notice that these are all in line and the whole number is also in line. Okay, they're split into different parts, but we need to keep the start and the end of the number line the same size. Otherwise, we wouldn't be able to compare them. They wouldn't be equal sizes. Okay, so that is really important. And then the next thing I'm going to do is start to think about how I can compare the fractions. So I'm going to look at my half first because that's the first one. So if I draw a line right down the middle where I start 1/2, I can see 1/2 is in line with 2/4. So 1/2 is equal to 2/4. And then I need to keep going. And I can also see it's in line with 4/8. So 1/2 is the same as 2/4 and 4/8. I'm going to look if I can find any more. So I'm going to look at 1/4. So I'm not going to start in halves because there isn't any lines on that one. So I can see that 1/4 is the same as 2/8. So you can use our fraction rule. I can see this very clearly from my number line now because they're the same size number line. So 1/8 is not equivalent to any quarters or to any halves because it's a smaller part. If I was to try and fit this one into here, it's too small to get there. I need 2 of them and it's way too small to make up a half. Okay. So what I'm going to do is keep looking for equivalent fractions. I'm going to see, are any the same as 3/4? So 3/4, oh, I can see is the same. It's in line with 6/8. Okay. Now, if I start going from my 8s now and going up, you can see again, like I explained here, none of those are going to fit. But you're going to look at some different number lines, so you might find some more equivalent fractions. So hopefully when they're all written out neatly, you can see them clearly like this one here. So your task for today is to label each number line with the correct fraction divisions, which I will show you in a moment. And then you're going to find the equivalent fraction. So quite similar to yesterday, but instead of using the fraction rule, you're going to be using the number lines instead. Now, this might be a bit tricky to draw out at home if you haven't got a printer to print it out, because it's very important that we get them the same size and the same width apart. Otherwise, it's going to get a bit confusing and we might get some of them wrong. So if you can't print it at home, what I would like you to do is just talk it through with someone at home or on your own and think about what labels you would use, and then you can have a look at the screen and see if you can work out where some of the equivalent fractions would be. We are going to go through it together as well, so it'll make it a bit clearer. Okay, so I'm just going to show you an example. So this is a sheet you should have in front of you, whether it's printed off or on your screen in a moment. So it doesn't matter which way round you do it. You can do it that way or this way, as long as you're looking at the part. So remember, the first thing I need to put right at the beginning is my 0. So I'm just going to do the first one for you. And then I'm going to count my parts. So I have 1, 2. So there are 2 parts. So I know that it is in half. So this is going to be 1/2 and 2/2. Or remember, this is the same as 1 or 1. Okay, so you're going to do that for each number line. Just be careful when you get to the ones with more, make sure you count them. So I'm going to label this 0, and then we need to count 1, 2, 3, and so on. So it's always the first jump is here. Okay, and then labeling every single one at the end with the number 1. Okay, once you've finished filling in all your fractions, you can get another sheet or a ruler to help you. I'm going to use a ruler to make it nice and clear. I'm going to start thinking about which fractions are the same. So you can see that they're in line. Now make sure your ruler's not really straight, and I'm not going like this, because obviously that's not going to be accurate. You need to make sure you're lined up nice and straight so you can see clearly which ones are the same. So you're going to go in a moment, you're going to fill that in, think about which ones are equivalent fractions, and then we're going to come back and have a go at that together. So I'm going to pop it back onto this screen here so you can see those if you need to talk it through. So off you go and come back when you're ready. Okay, hopefully you've managed to have a go at that, whether it was writing it down if you've printed it or whether you've just talked it through with somebody. So I'm going to pop the answers up on the screen for you now. So hopefully if you've labelled yours at home, it should look a little bit like this. And we're quickly just going to talk about some of the equivalent fractions. So I'm going to start with, let's go with one that I can see is similar here. So I'm going to match up these ones because I can see they are in line. So you might have done that with a pencil or a pen at home. I've done it nice and clearly so you can see with the pink highlighter there. So that's telling me that 3/9, 2/6 and 1/3 are all equivalent fractions. So I can begin to write them. We've already looked at this one as well together before, which is equal to 3/9 and so on. Okay, so hopefully you've managed to find some different ones. Now it's a bit tricky because there's some that look like they're very close together, like this one here, but actually there's a little gap there. So remember, my equivalent fractions should hopefully have numbers that are in the same times tables. So I probably know that 7 and 9 are not going to be in the same one because they're not in the same times table. Okay. So you may have found some other ones. I'm going to do one here. So we have 6/8 and 3/4 look like they're in line as well. So I know that 3/4 is equal to 6/8. Okay, so hopefully you found lots of different equivalent fractions on there. It's really important that you check the denominators and they are following that pattern. Okay, let's just go through one more question together just to make sure that that is clear. So, completely new question on your board. Alex and Tommy are using number lines to explore equivalent fractions. So Alex says 2/6 is equal to 1/3. So she's drawn her bars there, her number lines. I'm not going to talk through those because you're going to have a look at them. And then Tommy says 3/6 is equal to 1/3. So have a look at his number lines as well. I want you to think about who do you agree with and explaining why. So you might just think about it in your head, or if you can, try and explain it to an adult at home or someone that's with you. So have a look carefully. You're going to pause the screen. Who is correct, or who do you agree with? And I want you to think about why as well. So look at what they've done on the number lines. Now you might already know which one is equivalent just by looking at the numbers, but think carefully what mistake they might have made on their drawings. Okay, pause the video, have a think, and then we're going to go through that together. Okay, so hopefully you've had a think about that. Now, I agree with Alex, because Alex says that 2/6 is equal to 1/3, and I can see that she has started the number line off at the same point. She's split the top one into 6, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It's 6 equal parts, and the bottom into 1, 2, 3 equal parts. So the number lines are the same length, and she split them into equal parts representing the denominator. So I know that they are equal. They're equivalent fractions. However, if I look at Tommy's, I don't agree with Tommy, because even though he has done a similar thing to Alex, he started the number line off at the same point and ended it at the same point. They are the same length. He's done the bottom one into 1, 2, 3 parts. So this is representing 1/3. He's done something a bit silly on the top one. So if I count the parts, he's done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Are they split into equal parts? No, they're not split into equal parts. So because he's not done this equally, it looks like 3/6 and 1/3 are the same, but in fact they're not, because he's not drawn his number line properly. So hopefully you managed to work that out. Right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen now. Okay, hopefully that was a bit clearer today on your equivalent fractions year 4. Tomorrow we're going to be carrying on our learning and looking at non-unit fractions of quantities before we look a little bit more at equivalent fractions. So have a fantastic rest of your day. Can't wait to see your work on Seesaw. See you tomorrow.